The dying wealthy man gave his house to the first vagabond he encountered and went to spend his final days in a hospice. But when he returned for his documents, he was astonished. "Mr. Potter, are you home?" shouted Martha as she entered the house, habitually opening the door with her key. The woman quickly walked into the living room and saw Mr. Potter, the homeowner, right on the floor. He was lying curled up, clutching his heart and gasping for air. "My God! What's wrong with you?" Martha began quickly dialing the emergency number. "You came just in time," said the elderly doctor. "His blood pressure is extremely high. Do you know what happened to him? Maybe stress or some medication." "I doubt it. I just arrived. I'm here on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I cook, clean, and do small tasks. Will he be all right?" "It's better to be safe. We'll take him to the clinic. They'll run some tests to figure everything out. Does Mr. Potter have any relatives? Who should be informed about what happened?" "He has no one. He's all alone. Please, take my number. We've been in touch for about 15 years. There's no one closer to him than me, although I'm just something like a housekeeper." Martha looked at the doctor anxiously. Benjamin regained consciousness in the intensive care unit. The pain that had suddenly seized him in the living room that morning was gone. His head was slightly dizzy, and he was thirsty and sleepy. "Mr. Potter, how are you feeling?" asked a young nurse, approaching Ben. "Awful, sweetheart, just awful," he croaked. "What's wrong with me?" "It's too early to say. We need further examination. The most important thing is not to worry and to regain your strength. That way, you'll recover faster and be discharged home." Ben closed his eyes and drifted into sleep. In all his 64 years, he had never experienced anything like this. He never complained about his health, rarely even caught a cold. Martha used to laugh that he was genetically modified, no illness could affect him. But now, some sickness did manage to catch and attack him unexpectedly and sharply, like a cat attacking a mouse in the dark. Benjamin Potter had connected his life with jewelry making from a young age. Even in school, he crafted things from wire and made castings of various trinkets from copper. His father called him a weakling because his son was interested in what he considered women's trinkets. But Ben didn't abandon his hobby, he just got better at hiding from his father to avoid conflicts. Despite his father's threats, he enrolled in university and specialized in jewelry. He started working during his student years. He was praised and was predicted a brilliant future in every sense of the word. You had to see this man at work. He dedicated himself completely to the process, creating beauty, turning pieces of metal into incredibly delicate works. Even Professor Douglas, a stingy old man with praise, admired Benjamin Potter's jewelry and invited him to his small workshop when he graduated. The professor not only had theoretical knowledge of jewelry making, but was also a highly skilled craftsman. Ben learned a lot from the old man and continued his work. The father couldn't believe that his son had achieved success by doing something he considered to be nonsense. He never admitted that he was wrong. He held firm to his belief that a man should have a regular job, not make some trinkets to amuse various frivolous people. Meanwhile, the mother was overjoyed, hugging Ben. "I always knew that your finely tuned soul would find a way to bring beauty and incredible pleasure to the world. Your jewelry is like a gift from heaven." Ben Potter had been in the clinic for about a week. Pills, IVs, tests, scans. Ben wasn't used to this routine. He had always been a free artist, master of his own time, but here he had to conform to the schedule and follow the doctor's and nurse's instructions. It felt to him like he was in a prison from which he couldn't escape. A vague feeling of anxiety filled his entire being. Sometimes it seemed like something was wrong, as if he wasn't in the right place at the right time. But Ben brushed off these feelings. He had been through a lot, and maybe the after effects were making themselves known now. He longed to go home, sit in his favorite rocking chair by the window in his study, pour himself a glass of cool homemade lemonade that his housekeeper Martha made so wonderfully, and drink it slowly, lost in his thoughts. The most unusual ideas came to the jeweler in those moments. Often, after such seemingly idle time, Ben Potter would jump up and run to his work table, which was in another part of the study. Actually, it was just a small adjoining room with plenty of lamps for perfect working light. There, Master Potter would create, forgetting everything else, his gaze focused through a special magnifying glass, his faithful helper that allowed him to see what was invisible to the naked eye. Then earrings or a pendant or a bracelet with tiny stones would appear. And the wonders this man created when engraving his pieces were unparalleled. He wouldn't trust anyone in the world with this work. Even in the clinic, Ben sketched in his notebook. Even in this prison, the master couldn't help but create. At least this way, on paper. One day, Dr. Kramer called Ben into his office for a chat. Ben noticeably worried. The doctor wouldn't call him in for nothing. Surely his health was in serious jeopardy. "Mr. Potter, it's hard for me to say this, but I can't avoid it. Your situation, how to put it, is very difficult. Your heart is failing. You won't survive an operation, that's certain. We can only keep the motor running with medication for as long as possible. So, I've outlived my time, huh?" Ben smirked. "Well, let's not be so categorical. We'll still fight for you, we will. By the way, I collaborate with a laboratory. Not long ago they developed a drug. It works incredibly on tired hearts. But I must say, it is an experimental drug. The responsibility will be on you. If you want to try it. What do I have to lose? Let's give it a try. If I'm going to die, it might as well be as part of an experiment," sighed the patient, clasping his hands together. "I like your optimism. Patients like you have a better chance of recovery. What should I do?" "Nothing. Just go home, and on Monday, I will personally bring you this miracle drug. We'll sign the necessary papers, and you will start taking it. I'll always be in touch. If something goes wrong, call me right away, and we'll figure out what to do next. Is there someone to look after you?" "Only my housekeeper can do it on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Mondays." Strange sequence, thought Dr. Kramer. "I see. If you want, I can assign a nurse to you. After all, you are participating in an experiment. The lab is interested in a successful outcome." No, doctor, I can't stand strangers in the house. Thank you for your concern, but it's not necessary. I'll call you as soon as I feel unwell." "Deal, Mr. Potter. I can discharge you from here as early as tomorrow." Finally, some good news in the last week and a half. Ben slightly smiled. Benjamin called a taxi, but for some reason, it took a long time to arrive. The man left the clinic grounds and sat on a bench. This way, he wouldn't miss the car. On the same bench sat a thin girl, almost a teenager, at most 16 to 17 years old. She was trembling all over, although it was very warm outside. "Are you feeling unwell, honey?" Ben asked kindly. "Do you need help?" He never had children of his own. It so happened that he lived his life as a bachelor. He couldn't find the one who would simply love him and not try to take a part of his hard-earned fortune. "I can't be helped anymore," sniffing and wiping her tears, the girl said. She looked like a vagabond, but clearly had started such a lifestyle only recently. She looked so helpless and lost, even scared, as if trying to hide from some terrible monster. "Don't say that. Any trouble can be helped. Sometimes it's enough just to tell someone about it, and life miraculously gets better. I'm telling you for sure." "What's there to tell?" "I might as well hang myself," the girl said sadly. "Stop. Don't say that. Let's go to my place instead. I live alone, I'll feed you, you can take a shower, and at the same time, you can tell me about your troubles." Ben smiled warmly. "You just invite some vagabond to your house like that?" The girl was surprised. "You know, I might have very little time left to live, so I have nothing to lose. You don't seem like a gangster who's going to stab me in the next alley." The girl slightly smiled. Her face transformed immediately, her eyes sparkled, and even her cheeks got a hint of color. Such a young creature, but with such sadness in her eyes that Ben's heart ached. At that moment, a taxi arrived. Ben stood up, gesturing for the girl to join him. She silently jumped up from the bench and trailed behind the elderly man towards the car. "What's your name?" Ben asked quietly as they got into the car. "Ivy," the girl replied curtly. They didn't say a word on the way. They arrived quickly. It was a weekday, but no longer rush hour. Ivy was nearly speechless when she saw where this strange man had brought her. The house wasn't very large, but it was sturdy, well-furnished, and had an air of expense, as she noted. It smelled of fresh flowers and pastries. Ivy's stomach growled so loudly that Ben heard the complaint of her hungry belly. "I'll feed you now, Ivy." Martha must have cooked up a storm. "It was Wednesday yesterday, and I told her I'd be back today." "Who is Martha?" "Your wife?" the girl asked timidly. "No, Martha is the kindest soul, and she works as my housekeeper. We've been friends for 15 years, the host smiled. It was evident he spoke of this woman with warmth and affection. They entered a kitchen that flowed into a small dining area. "So, what do we have here?" Ben opened the fridge. "Oh, seafood salad. Do you eat that?" "I do," the girl breathed out. "My stomach's been empty since the night before last. I think I could eat a live frog right now," Ivy laughed. "Then sit down and dig in." A salad, stuffed pancakes, and many other delicious dishes were placed on the table. Ivy ate with appetite, trying not to rush and not to appear foolish or impolite. "Why did you say you have nothing to lose?" Ivy suddenly asked, sipping some juice from a tall glass. "Because it's true, dear. My heart refuses to work. I live only on pills." "How sad." "You're so kind. Just like my dad." "Where is your father now?" "He died many years ago, when I was just starting school. A beam fell on him at a construction site. They couldn't save him." Ivy's eyes filled with tears. "What a tragedy. And your mother?" Ben pushed a plate of buns closer to the girl. "My mother. In this life, she loves two things, alcohol and Dan, that jerk." "Is he your stepfather?" "He's nobody to me. They're not even married. And he started making advances towards me more than once." "Did you talk to your mother?" "What's the use? She just rolled her drunk eyes at me and started yelling that I was seducing him and then complaining. And I can't stand that drunkard. I hate them both." "Oh, my poor girl, you've been through a lot. And you've been wandering like this? How long?" "Not for long. 3 days ago, I gathered my documents and some clothes, ran away from home, and took the evening bus to the city. I bought the ticket with my last money. I didn't care where I was going, as long as I didn't have to stay with those drunkards." The girl stood up and began clearing the table. "Do you mind if I wash the dishes?" "Oh, leave it. Put them in the dishwasher." Ben pointed to the door next to the oven. "I could have handled it," Ivy said quietly. "Okay, as you say. You can take a shower. You'll find everything you need, including a towel, in the bathroom." "Thank you. I'll never forget your kindness." "Yeah, you won't have long to remember it," Ben Potter smirked. "What?" The girl was astonished. "I said, you won't have long to remember my kindness before I die. I was talking about myself. And besides, you'll live long and happily. I'm telling you, I often feel these things." "Are you a witch or something?" "No, I just sense death. A person who is destined to leave this world soon has a cold aura and smells of something rotten or damp. You smell fresh, so stop preparing for your grave." Ivy left the kitchen. She noticeably brightened up after feeding her starving stomach. Ben stared at his phone screen. He had read this ad for the 100th time. He was increasingly inclined to settle in that nursing home and live out his remaining time among people. Yes, he didn't like being around strangers. Yes, he didn't want to live by someone else's imposed schedule, but at least there he could get timely help and a decent burial. He had money, enough to ensure a good old age. Of course, he would have to forget about his favorite work, but at least he wouldn't rot until Martha came. Ben decided to go to that nursing home tomorrow and make all the arrangements. When Ivy came out of the shower, Ben involuntarily admired her beauty. He could have had a granddaughter or at least a daughter like her now. But he never had serious relationships, only short affairs. They were sitting in the living room with a cup of coffee. "Ivy, I want to leave this house to you in my will," Ben said simply, placing his cup on the saucer. "Mr. Potter, are you joking?" The girl looked up at him. "Not at all. You'll live happily here. Are you 18 already?" "Not yet. I just turned 17. What are you talking about? You still have a long life ahead of you. Even if that's true. What's stopping me from making this will? You're a very good girl and you deserve a good life." "How do you know? What if I'm a real scoundrel?" The girl giggled. "Well, you can feel death. And I can feel that you're a very good girl. I wish I could live to see the days when you achieve success," the homeowner sighed. "What success? I didn't even go to college. My mother wouldn't let me. She told me to go to work because no one was going to feed me, and I have a younger sister. She's 11 now. My heart aches for her. I dream of taking her with me, but dreaming is just dreaming." "A sister, you say?" "She's there now, with those people?" "Yes, with those creeps. I'm not ashamed to talk about my mother like this. She was never a good mother to me or Liza. She never cared about what was happening to us or how we felt. She used to drink occasionally, but since she started living with that idiot Dan, she's gone off the rails. I think she's ready to sell us for a cheap glass of port without a second thought. I hate her. Don't worry, we'll rescue your sister, I promise." Ivy looked at Ben gratefully. His kind eyes looked at her with tenderness and warmth. It was the way loving family members usually looked at you. Ivy hadn't seen such a look in many years. Not since her father died. No one had looked at her that way, except maybe Liza. But that's a bit different. Ivy felt a great responsibility for her sister, and she was very afraid for the girl. After all, Dan might start harassing her too. The thought made Ivy feel sick. The next morning, Ben Potter went to the hospice for the hopeless, as he mentally dubbed the place. His heart felt a slight pressure, but he tried to ignore the pain. The hospice was situated by a lake. The bright building looked like a dwelling for forest creatures. The walls were covered in ivy and climbing roses, with turrets and columns, and a mermaid sat on a large boulder near the stairs. She looked so realistic that you couldn't take your eyes off her. Her tail shimmered in the sunlight, and her hair moved slightly in the breeze. Not made of stone, then. The scent of freshly cut grass filled the air, and the lawn beckoned to lie down on its neatly trimmed surface. A paradise. It's a pity that this place was for those who were preparing to depart this world, comfortably, of course, but the sense of hopelessness lingered in the air. In the doctor's office, where he received patients wanting to move into the hospice, it was bright and smelled of fresh wood. Mr. Sheldon was just over 50. His smiling face was welcoming. "Your heart, you say, is failing?" the doctor asked. "Yes, as they told me at the clinic where I spent about a week and a half, it refuses to work. Only medications can keep it going. But it could stop at any moment without warning," Benjamin said bitterly. "Do you have any documents, medical records, prescriptions with you?" "No, honestly, I didn't even think they might be needed. In general, of course, it's possible to manage without them, but I still suggest that patients undergo a full examination here." That way, we'll have a complete picture of your condition. Sometimes there are misdiagnoses, you know. I've had 5 such cases in my practice. A person comes to the hospice, but leaves here not to the cemetery, but to a happy life. Oh, how much I would give for my diagnosis of a dead heart to be a mistake. Ben smirked and began drumming his fingers on his knee. Especially now. The doctor looked at the man with mild interest and continued. When do you want to check in? Maybe on Monday? Good, then I'll expect you on Monday at 9 with a full set of documents and certificates. Bring everything you need. It's almost like home here, so you should like it. Oh, if only there was a workshop, it would be perfect, Ben said with regret. What kind of workshop? I'm a jeweler. I can't live without work. I've been crafting various jewelry for so many years, and I never get tired of it. How wonderful! Rarely do I meet people so passionate about their work. Except for myself, the doctor chuckled softly. We'll find a place for you. Really? Ben asked with a childlike joy. The doctor nodded and got up from his chair. Ben stood up too. They said goodbye until Monday morning. As he approached his house, Ben felt a strange anxiety, even a pit in his stomach. Could it really be just the sadness of parting with his cozy lone wolf's den? The door was unlocked. Ben remembered how Ivy had locked it when she saw him off in the morning. Could she have gone out and forgotten to lock it? A chill ran down his spine. Ben abruptly opened the door. He heard Ivy crying from the entrance. Ivy, what happened? He shouted from the hallway. Mr. Potter, is that you? She responded, sobbing. I didn't mean to kill him. Ben almost dropped his keys. He quickly entered the living room. Dr. Kramer was lying on the floor. A vase was nearby. Ivy, darling, what happened here? Ben asked worriedly, bending over the doctor who had appeared out of nowhere. He yelled at me, demanding that I call you immediately. He didn't believe that you had gone somewhere. He said he brought the medicine. Strange, he was supposed to come on Monday, and today is Friday, Ben puzzled, feeling the doctor's pulse. He's alive. He'll come around soon. You really knocked him out, Ben smiled cheerfully, looking at Ivy. The girl was pale, her hands were shaking, she could barely speak. He grabbed me. He was acting strangely, nervous, looking around. He's a bad man, a very bad man. Come on, darling, he's a good doctor. He even volunteered to bring me the medicine that might help me live a bit longer. It seemed to me that he was ready to shake the soul out of me, accusing me of stupidity, constantly looking at his watch. He grabbed my hands and then pushed me onto the couch. And then I noticed the vase. Everything just happened somehow. But I didn't want to kill him. Came the groaning from the floor. Both leaned over Dr. Kramer. Dr. Kramer, how are you? Ben asked. He opened his eyes and stared at him. Mr. Potter? This girl attacked me like a madwoman. I was just bringing the medicine. He touched his bruised spot. Let me help you up, Ben offered somewhat guiltily. No, I can manage. It's all right, I just blacked out. Mr. Kramer slowly got to his feet. Would you like some water? Ben put the keys he had dropped into his pocket. Yes, I suppose I wouldn't mind. Can we talk in private? Yes, of course. Ivy, please bring a pitcher of water and a glass for the doctor, and then leave us, okay? Okay, Mr. Potter. The girl slowly left the living room. A few seconds later, she returned with a pitcher of water and 2 glasses. Thank you, dear, Ben said briefly. Now the doctor and I will talk. Ivy left again. Her face clearly showed anxiety and fear. It seemed she didn't want to leave her savior alone with the doctor. Doctor, did something happen? You promised to come on Monday. No, nothing. I just picked up the medicine from the lab a bit earlier and decided to bring it to you right away. Sorry if I scared the girl. Who is she? Just a girl I know. She's very nice, just scared. She hasn't had an easy life, so she worries about everything. I'm leaving you 3 capsules. The doctor handed over a transparent container with dark green capsules. The first one should be taken under my supervision. I'll be here on Monday. All right, as you say, Ben agreed. He had completely forgotten that he needed to go to the hospice on Monday. Dr. Kramer looked at his watch and quickly said goodbye to Ben. Benjamin was still in bed when Dr. Sheldon called. The same one who had spoken to him at the nursing home the day before. Mr. Potter, can we conduct the examination today? A colleague of mine from the Capitol, a very good cardiac surgeon, has dropped by. We would like to review the results together. Well, okay, Ben mumbled and got out of bed. Half an hour later, he was ready to hit the road. For some reason, he felt like taking the cherished box with capsules that Dr. Kramer had given him. The entire examination took about 3 hours. Ben was very tired. His heart started to ache. Suddenly, Ben remembered the medicine from the lab. Dr. Sheldon, he began, Dr. Kramer, who was treating me at the clinic where I stayed recently, suggested I participate in an experiment and gave me some miraculous drug that was recently created in a laboratory with which he closely collaborates. If you're interested, I'll show it to you. Yes, by all means, show me. Ben handed over a container with 3 dark green capsules. Do you mind if we send one to the lab? Not at all. I understand, professional interest, Ben said with a broad smile. Wait, Dr. Stevenson, the renowned specialist from the Capitol, suddenly interrupted. Why do you say you have a terminal diagnosis? Nothing of the sort was found, at least not yet, although we conducted a thorough examination. Your heart seems like, how should I put it? It feels like you've been subjected to severe intoxication or extreme stress over a long period. No, nothing like that happened to me. They gave me IVs and pills in the hospital, but before that, I only used aspirin, and not even that often. Strange, Dr. Stevenson muttered to himself. It feels like someone deliberately. He broke off his speculation. It seems, Mr. Potter, you're not our typical patient, Dr. Sheldon said, spreading his hands. But we'll get to the bottom of this, find out what happened to you and why. Thank you, Ben simply replied, shaking both doctors' hands and leaving the office. Ivy greeted Mr. Potter joyfully in the hallway. You took so long. What did they say? So far, Ivy, nothing is clear. But they suspect I'm not as sick as I thought. Although it's too early to say. I told you. You're going to have a long and happy life. The girl hugged Ben. He felt like he had known this girl for many years, even though they met 2 days ago. She radiated an incredible warmth that he had lacked all his life. Perhaps only his mother could give him something similar. He held Ivy close and stroked her hair. He wanted so much to make her life happy, and her younger sister's life too. Ben was about to go to bed when a message came from Dr. Sheldon. The examination showed that you are quite healthy. The capsule contains a powerful poison that causes paralysis of the heart muscle. You should contact the police, Ben read. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. Dr. Kramer had given him those capsules. Did that mean he intentionally wanted to kill him? But why? They had no connection. Ben had only met him for the first time when they saw each other at the clinic. Maybe it was some kind of mistake. But the examination showed that there was no mortal danger. Ben couldn't fall asleep that night. His thoughts were swarming in his head. His brain was literally exploding. What made Dr. Kramer commit such a monstrous act? In his entire life, Ben Potter couldn't recall a single serious enemy. He led a solitary life, never conflicted with anyone, never bothered anyone, just worked in his workshop. He had no affairs with married women either. Maybe he didn't know something and this Kramer was someone's husband, holding a grudge against his wife's lover? But why now, when he's already over 60? Very strange, wildly strange. The day turned out to be eventful. First, it was necessary to get a report from Dr. Sheldon, and then Ben went to the police station. The policeman also turned out to be an enthusiast for his work. Mr. Potter, you say that tomorrow this gentleman is going to visit you to watch you take the medicine in his presence. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. He told me himself, Ben replied. Excellent. Tomorrow you are to take those very pills he brought you, right in front of him. What? Ben's eyebrows shot up. Yes. I'll explain what I mean. Benjamin Potter left the police station in high spirits. Even his heart almost stopped bothering him. Although, as Dr. Sheldon explained to him, all this nonsense with his blood pressure and heart pain was due to thoracic spine chondrosis. Yes, he had completely forgotten that he was no longer a young man and that sitting in one position for long periods while making jewelry would sooner or later cause something like this. As soon as everything is settled, I'll sign up for a massage, Ben thought, getting into the car. Mr. Potter, I've made vegetable stew, Ivy said cheerfully, meeting Ben in the hallway. Well done. I'll have some of your cooking right now. He ran his hand through the girl's hair. How are you? Feeling well? Yes, I'm good, thank you. I just keep thinking about Lisa. How is she? Don't worry. Tomorrow one matter will be resolved, and we'll immediately start working on freeing your sister from the captivity of her own home. Ben smiled and went to wash his hands. Thank you, Ivy said quietly. She was so grateful to fate that she had met this kind old man. He had opened a door to a completely different world for her, a world of kindness, joy, and understanding. In the evening, Dr. Kramer called Ben. Is everything still on for tomorrow? He asked. Yes, I'll be waiting for you. What time do you plan to arrive? Would it be all right if I came around 7 in the morning? Not at all. I'm an early riser. I wake up around 6. One more thing. Will we be undisturbed? For example, that girl or perhaps the household staff? No, don't worry. Ivy left yesterday, and there's no one else in the house. That's good. The reaction could be somewhat unusual. I wouldn't want us to be interrupted. Well, who would like to be interrupted while killing a person? Ben smirked to himself. Out loud, he said, I understand. We won't be disturbed. Excellent, Mr. Potter. See you tomorrow at 7. Tomorrow at 7. See you, he hung up. At 6:30 in the morning, Ben was already in the living room. A carafe of water, glasses, and a container with the elixir of eternal life were on the table. He was a bit nervous but felt like a participant in some movie or even a TV show. Something important was supposed to happen today in his life, and not only in his. Exactly at 7, Dr. Kramer was standing on the doorstep of Benjamin Potter's house. Good morning, Mr. Potter. Good morning, Dr. Kramer. Please come in. They went into the living room and sat down in armchairs on either side of the table with the carafe and pills. Would you like some tea? Ben offered. No, thank you. Let's get to business. The doctor took his phone out of his jacket pocket and placed it on the table. First, let's measure your blood pressure. All right, Ben extended his arm. Slightly low blood pressure, but that's good. The medication might cause a small spike. Have you eaten today? Just a toast with jam and tea. Excellent. Are you ready to take the medication? Ready, he exhaled. Then let's begin. Dr. Kramer opened the container. Ben glanced first at the pills and then stared at the doctor. Is something wrong? Kramer swallowed nervously. No, everything is fine. Ben poured water into a glass and extended his hand to receive his medicine. Dr. Kramer carefully poured all 3 capsules into Ben's hand and closed the container. Ben tossed the pills into his mouth in one motion and washed them down with water. It seems you were right, Dr. Kramer," he said. "Miracles are happening in the lab. I need to visit and thank the staff for their hard work." "What? What are you talking about?" the doctor asked in surprise. "I feel like I'm 20 again. And this is just 3 pills, imagine a full course. I'll probably learn to fly. What do you think?" "I don't understand. Do you feel all right? No dizziness? No nausea? Nothing?" "Absolutely nothing, doctor. Were you expecting my heart to be paralyzed and for me to start convulsing, right?" Kramer turned pale and stared at his patient. What are you saying?" Why do you want to kill me, Dr. Kramer? We don't even know each other." "Mr. Potter, you're saying strange things. What murder are you talking about?" "The kind that's done with a potent poison, Doc. And before that, you tell the person that their heart will stop soon unless they try a miraculous experimental drug. I just want to understand one thing. Why? We're not even competitors. And how do you say this, Potter?" The doctor's face changed. His mouth twisted in anger. "Do you remember Barbara Fox?" "Barbara Fox?" Ben shrugged. "No, I don't remember." "Of course not. You must have had girls like her in every city. A master jeweler. Successful and wealthy. You ruined her life, and mine too. She's been confined to a wheelchair for over 30 years now. I wanted to marry her, but she rejected me and ran to you. But you just abandoned her, and she jumped off a bridge. She didn't die, but she's crippled forever. Today I came to exact my revenge, but you managed to get away unscathed again. I don't know how you figured it all out in just 2 days, but I will still kill you. Even if I have to spend the rest of my life behind bars." Kramer stood and, with a single leap, was in front of Ben. He raised his fist to strike, but at that moment, 2 policemen grabbed him and deftly snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. "You are under arrest, Mr. Kramer," one of them said. He looked silently from the policeman to Ben. He couldn't utter a word. The appearance of the law enforcers was too unexpected. The doctor realized he had achieved absolutely nothing. Inside, he was boiling with rage. For so many years, he had tried to find Ben Potter and first to discover who he believed was responsible for his beloved's misfortune. When Ben Potter was about 30, he met young Barbara at a club. For him, it was just a fling. He promised her nothing. She threw herself at him and seduced him. Ben was drunk, young, and hot-blooded. He had just completed a very profitable deal and came to the club to relax. He didn't turn down the company of the beautiful Barbie. Afterward, she started to stalk him, calling, writing, asking to meet. But Ben returned to his hometown, and this girl stayed behind. Ben heard nothing more of her. He was glad that the beauty had stopped bothering him with her calls and messages. Benjamin Potter didn't know that this Barbara Fox, he didn't even remember her name, let alone her surname, jumped off a bridge when she received his message, "Sorry, there can be nothing between us." There was a person in Barbara's life who truly loved her, Alex Kramer. But the girl didn't care at all about this bore who dreamed of becoming a doctor and was always short on money. What does a student usually have? Nothing. But Barbie wanted everything at once: a rich man by her side, a house, a car, classy clothes, and social status. But life doesn't always give us what we want. This girl preferred to die rather than not get what she desired, even though she was only 20, with her whole life ahead of her. Barbara Fox didn't die, and sometime after the tragedy, she became Alex Kramer's wife. No, she didn't love him, didn't suddenly feel he was the one she needed, she just had no other choice. Alex was ready to do anything to punish the guilty, but Barbara didn't tell him much, and she herself knew little about the young man with the dashing looks who was obviously well off. But Alex Kramer didn't give up trying to find the scoundrel who had turned his Barbie into a cripple. And eventually, he found Ben Potter, even moving to the city where he lived, and started tracking him. He was offered a job in the capital, but he chose revenge over a happy and wealthy life. But the revenge failed. Now Dr. Kramer is forced to spend many years behind bars, and he can forget about his professional career forever. When Ben was left alone in the living room, Ivy came downstairs. "Mr. Potter, are you okay?" The girl looked frightened. "Stop calling me so formally," he smiled. "Just call me Ben." Ivy ran up and hugged him. "Will everything be okay now? What happened here?" "I tried to eavesdrop, but I couldn't understand much." "I'll tell you about it sometime, darling, but for now, shall we have breakfast? I'm terribly hungry." Lisa was sitting on the bench near their shabby little house. In the morning, her mother had quarreled with Dan again. The day before, they had gotten quite drunk. Their wars always started with a massive hangover. The girl was very scared, especially when her older sister Ivy suddenly disappeared. She didn't know how to find her since she didn't even have a basic mobile phone. Lisa sat dejectedly on the bench, drawing patterns on the ground with her bare foot. Tears were rolling down her cheeks, and she didn't even try to wipe them away. "Why did you leave me with them?" Lisa muttered. "I can't live with these strange people who only want to drink, smoke, and swear." "Hello," Lisa suddenly heard. She looked up and saw Ivy. Lisa rubbed her eyes with her fists, blinked, and looked at the girl again. "Ivy, you're back?" Lisa threw herself into her sister's arms. "You didn't leave me." "No, little one, I'm here to take you with me. We'll go far away from here and live happily with Ben. He's very kind, like a wizard from a fairy tale." The sisters cried, hugging each other tightly. They would probably have stood there much longer if not for Ben and two other men, a lawyer and a social worker, who got out of a nearby parked Jeep. "Ben, I got an A in math today," Lisa cheerfully babbled as she entered the house. "The teacher praised me." "You're my smart girl," he said joyfully, picking her up. "And Martha made your favorite cherry pancakes today. I'll go hug her." Lisa rushed towards the kitchen. "Not today, she already left. I let her go early, she had some things to do." "Okay, I'll send her a message," the girl sighed. "I'll go get changed." Later, Ivy came back from college. Her dream had come true, she was now studying archaeology. She had dreamed of becoming an archaeologist since childhood. The girl had worked hard all summer to keep up with the others. And she not only kept up, but she was ahead of the rest. "You've got a bright mind, kid," Ben said. "And I haven't learned anything in my life except jewelry." "That's not true. You've learned what it means to be a real person, a person with a capital P. You're the best, Ben." Ben recalled Ivy's words that he was destined for a long and happy life. He wanted so much to believe it. After all, his life as an old man was now filled with true meaning, even two meanings. Lisa and Ivy became little stars that lit his way to a life full of joy and gave him true happiness, which he had never known before, the happiness of a real, friendly, and loving family. Ben Potter was ready to do anything to make his beloved girls healthy and happy. A few days before Christmas, Lisa came home later than usual. Ben was in the workshop and didn't come out to greet the girl right away. He immediately noticed that Lisa was worried about something. She looked at him somewhat guiltily. "Is something wrong, my girl?" he asked, tugging on the pom-pom of her hat. "Ben, I couldn't pass by. You'd probably never let me keep him." Something squeaked under Lisa's jacket. "Are you hiding a bomb in there or something?" Ben squinted. "Show me already, I can't wait to see what you've got there." Lisa slowly pulled the zipper, and from under the jacket, a big-eyed anthracite-colored kitten peeked out, meowing loudly. "Phew, thank goodness. Not a bomb." Ben laughed. "Where did you find this little rascal?" He was sitting right by the road, shivering and meowing so pitifully. "I couldn't leave him there." Tears streamed down the girl's cheeks. "Well, it's good that you couldn't. You have a kind heart and a bright soul. So, what are you standing there for? Change your clothes, and let's go." Where to? The girl was surprised. We'll show the animal to the vet, and at the same time, we'll buy everything necessary. Ben, does that mean we can keep Chris? Wow, you've already named him. Are you sure it's a male? Oh, I didn't even think of that. Lisa laughed out loud. In the evening, they all brainstormed names for the kitten. Chris wasn't suitable since the kitten turned out to be a female. They went through about 100 names, but none seemed fitting. Oh, I know what to call our kitty, Ivy suddenly exclaimed. What? Ben and Lisa asked in unison. Tina. From the name Christina. Chris doesn't fit, but Tina is perfect. Exactly. I like it. Lisa jumped up from the rug she was sitting on and started hopping on one leg. And you, Ben? I accept. He replied, scratching the kitten, who had comfortably settled on his lap, between the ears. Tina purred loudly. If Ben, Lisa, and Ivy were cats, they would also be purring loudly because each of them was absolutely happy at that moment.